Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the show that is designed to bring you the workplace and workforce trends that are shaping the workplace and workforce around you. This broadcasts locally in Mobile, Alabama at 6 p.m. on this radio station, and I'm hoping to catch many of you on your way home from work or working late with the radio in the background. And my hope is that something that you'll hear on this show is going to make you just a little bit better at what it is that you do. We try to get our hands on the people that are identifying the trends, that can identify the trends that are shaping their own workplace, their own workforce, their own sales efforts, whatever it may be. And if you're a fan of the show, if you've listened to this several times, you know I have this penchant, this sweet spot for futurists, because I like the way they think. I like the way they identify patterns. And they see things not exactly before they get here. They're not soothsayers. They can't tell you what the lottery numbers are going to be, but they have an ability to identify the trends that are on the horizon. And I enjoy spending time with the futurists because they make me think. Now, my own business is undergoing an evolution as well. We've engaged an advertising agency to really evaluate what it is that this business that I have truly is. And there's so many disparate parts to my business. There's the seminar work that I've been doing for the past 20 some odd years. There are the commentaries that I do on Alabama Public Radio, which are kind of meant to be insightful and humorous things. We've been doing those for 3 years, got well over 150 of those things in the vault there, and they continue to be successful and win awards. And then there's this show, which I enjoy to my very bones, which allows me to talk to the people that stimulate my thoughts. So my business is undergoing a transformation as well. We've engaged an ad agency to do some market research for us to say, what is it that I have here? What is this business that Cam Marston has, and what can it become? And how do we incorporate these seminars and these workshops and these commentaries and this radio show into it? And the results aren't in yet. We're in the middle of this process. But the reason I say that is that I'm trying to try to predict where the business will go in such uncertain times is a big ask. It's a big ask for the agency that we've engaged. It's a big ask for me. It's a big ask for the team around me because things are changing, and they always change. But one of the unique things that pandemics create, and here I go again, I'm talking about this again, you've heard this before, pandemics throughout history have been an accelerator of the future. Now, what does that mean? It means that things that were going to happen down the road are happening sooner. Things that we predicted happening, let's say 5-7 years from now, are happening now. Pandemics throughout history have caused this to happen. And one of my favorite examples is one that I heard about the Black Plague. There we go. There's a pandemic kind of at the end of the Middle Ages, the begin of the Renaissance times, where the Black Plague caused by fleas killed millions. Some would say half to a third of the population, lots of people. But the Black Plague was indirectly responsible for increasing the literacy rate at the time. Black Plague, literacy rate? What you talking about, Cam? Here it is. The Black Plague, once people passed away, they took their clothes. That was called rag cloth. And they took their clothes and they turned that into writing paper of some sorts. And all of a sudden, this surplus of clothes, if you will, that became writing paper led to more books being produced, led to the literacy rates of the time increasing. So the Black Plague was indirectly responsible to the increasing literacy rates, which would have happened anyway, but happened much sooner due to the plague. Well, where does that leave us today? What are we looking at in the future right now that's going to be landing on our doorsteps? And most importantly, for the purpose of this show, where can we find these answers? So I go out and look for futurists, and every now and then, some of them come to me. When we come back from break, on the line with me will be Robert Tucker. He's a futurist that was recommended to me by a buddy named Mark Sanborn. Said, Cam, he's a thinker. You're going to want to listen to what he says. I think he'd be a great addition to your show, and we're going to push him. What does the post-pandemic world, the post-pandemic marketplace, the post-pandemic workplace look like in the eyes of this esteemed futurist? He's willing to go on the air and talk to us about him when we come back from break. Robert Tucker, Futurists. Love these guys. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Check us out on Instagram, Cam Marston. Find me on Facebook, again, Cam Marston, and find this show and every podcast link that you can find, every podcast site, and you can get more and more. We'll be right back with Robert Tucker.
'64. That's when Keith Air Conditioning opened their doors.
In my family, turn to the experts is more than a tagline. It's a promise. Every Keith technician is an experienced AC professional, and that saves you money. Speaking of money, how about 0% financing for up to 60 months on installations of new Carrier systems? Keith and Carrier, turn to the experts.
Mobile's leading name in comfort since 1964.
License number 83731.
The best, most cost-efficient ways to talk to customers about who you are and what you do is through signs, simple, effective signs. Hi, I'm Cam Marston, host of What's Working. Signorama is the Mobile area's leader in helping you design and build signs advertising your business. What kinds? All kinds of signs, all kinds. Find Signorama on Facebook or at signorama-mobile.com.
Think about how people really see you. The kid at the drive-thru just sees a coffee drinker.
Please pull forward.
Your local barista sees the person who loves a smiley face in their latte.
See you next time.
It's kind of the same way with insurance. Other insurance companies just see a customer, but a State Farm agent sees more. They see you as a neighbor. Your State Farm agent is here to get to know who you really are, so they can help life go right.
Call me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, in Mobile at 666-1616.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Our guest today is Robert Tucker. Robert's a futurist and one of the founding thought leaders of the global innovation movement. Over the past decades, he's crisscrossed the globe, 54 countries to date. Wow. Advising leaders on how to respond to rapid and disruptive technological, workplace, generational, and industry change. His bio has more content in it than that, and I'm going to get to that as we go along in this conversation. Robert, thank you so much for your willingness to join us on today's show.
Hey, Cam, it's great to be on with you.
So, folks, Robert is in California. He's in Santa Barbara. And if you're in the deep south, if you're in the Mobile, Alabama area, that's kind of a foreign country out there, way out on the West Coast. Robert, what's going on in Santa Barbara today? As you look out your window, what do you see?
Well, let me just first of all say I'm actually a Southern boy. I grew up in rural South Carolina, proud of it. And yes, I am out here on the West Coast, so I'm looking out the window at palm trees this morning.
Yeah.
And bougainvillea.
Man, that's beautiful. Santa Barbara is one of the world's most beautiful places. We could talk forever about that, but I want to get into the content, which I'm hoping you're going to lead us on. In the opening comments that you didn't hear prior to me getting you on the phone, I talked about this phenomenon of pandemics that I've read about as being accelerators of the future. I haven't found the exact terminology to describe it, but anything that was on the horizon is brought much closer due to pandemics, that it kind of accelerates where we were going already. Is that your understanding of pandemics as from the point of view of a futurist?
Well, it's a great question because we know a lot about how to emerge from recessions and even depressions and the effects on society and on the economy, but we know less about pandemics. But what we're finding is absolutely what you're saying there is that they do accelerate certain trends. They decelerate certain trends. They create new winners. They create new losers. Look at the different industries right now. Some of them, for example, the home improvement industry, Home Depot, Lowe's, and the others are going gangbusters and showing record profits because people are in the home more and they're looking around and saying, hey, let's fix this place up. This place is a dump. And, or whatever, the motivation there is. But gosh, other industries, restaurants, the speaking business, the cruise industry, any live performing kinds of live interacting businesses are really down in the dumps, and it's just been an unequal opportunity destroyer. So yes, I think it's accelerating certain trends. Certainly the tech sector is just going great guns. Working at home and using the computer more, Zoom and social media and that sort of thing are really accelerating technological trends. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, from your point of view, there is a place to return to. Let's take restaurants, for example. Is there a place to return to where we will begin to treat restaurants the way we used to? Or are these trends that we're seeing away from restaurants, away from cruises, away from vacations in which we, Disney, which we interact with a lot of strangers or become close to strangers? Is this over, do you think? Will we never see it the way we familiar with it? Never see it that way again?
Well, I think if you look back at the Spanish flu or even the bubonic plague, the Black Death of the 14th century, what you find is I think things do have an end point on pandemics. I think April of next year there's going to be a real turning point for a variety of reasons. But I think even if you look at as I say, the Spanish flu or the bubonic plague, that they do come to an end. And I see humans as needing to interact, to socialize in venues like restaurants. I mean, you and I are part of this thing called the meetings industry. It's about a $300 billion industry. And as professional speakers, we do live performances. That's how we, or at least I, make most of my income. And, we're doing Zoom. I'm doing a lot of virtual keynotes this fall, but it's not, I would say it's not even a tenth of the impact that a live presentation has. So, to your point, I think that there will be some things that are going to be around a while. For example, on cruise ships, you may not be able to go to the buffet. It's just too risky that somebody would sneeze or cough in that zone. And so that's probably a thing of the past. But the cruise itself, thinking about your work in generational insights, I see this boomer population, which I am a part of, and I see that when this thing is quote unquote over, or people feel a greater sense of confidence about returning to life or getting out there again, that they are going to flood the cruise ship lines, and they're going to flood conferences and meetings and live performances and that sort of thing, because they're looking at the other side of life here all of a sudden, and all this time on their hands to introspect and contemplate and that sort of thing has really said, gosh, I've got this bucket list over here, and there are these things that I really want to do before I leave this earth. And so I think we'll see a real resurgence in these industries.
But we don't know exactly which resurgence we'll see. And I love your example there. The cruises will roll again or float again, however you define it. But the buffets may not exist. And I wonder if there's not a different angle to take on this. And my goal in going down this road is to help my listeners think, okay, where is the future of my business going to go? What's going to happen? And I think there's perhaps, and I'm looking for your structure here, a way to think about it this way. What is a basic human need? Well, a basic human need is to eat. But what might change about that going forward? Well, we may not do the buffets due to the pandemic. A basic human need is to gather, let's say. And I don't know if we could argue that that's the case or not. Is that a basic need? So the people will continue to gather, but they might not gather the way they used to. Is there a way that we can look at what is a core human need that will remain unchanged, that has remained unchanged since we were Stone Age creatures, that will be in place 2 years from now, that I can say I need to continue to build my business moving in this direction of this core human need. However, and I'm using air quotes, the decoration around that human need may change, so I need to be wary of that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I took the words right out of my mouth. I think that is a great formula, and I really like your question. I think every business, no matter what industry one is associated with, whether it's insurance or our business, or cruise lines or whatever, you do need to look at that and say, what are the trends that are going to give lift to this profession, this industry, and which ones are working against us, because there's so much disruption today. I've been speaking on the topic of innovation, developing expertise in that for 30 years, and I see so much disruption. If you really stop to look at it, or you work with different industries, as I do, the one minute literally the kite retailers will invite me to speak at their meeting. At the funeral people. It has just been a learning experience, Cam, to work with all these groups that I would have never. The adhesives people all get together in America. I think this is one of our great attributes as a country. Some countries, many countries, don't have the critical mass to have separate meetings for all these different groups. But I learn from them, just as I hope I instruct or teach them about the future. But every industry has a different destiny, and within that industry, different companies have different destinies based on their ability to do two things. One is anticipate, that is to say, anticipate where the trends are going, where the technologies are taking them. Are they taking us toward disruption, toward diminishing the value that we bring to the party? And then creatively responding. So anticipating, and we can talk about that if you want, but that's this notion of foresight, right? And then creatively responding, that's this notion of how you've got to innovate your business.
Let's discuss that. And when we come back from break, let's begin with that. And perhaps we can phrase it this way. I submit this to you, Robert. If there's a better way to do it, I want to know. What are the questions that I, as a business owner, need to be asking that will tell me what things are going to be like in the post-pandemic future? And secondly, what are the signs that I need to be looking for that will indicate what will they be like? So what are the questions I need to be asking of myself, and which tea leaves do I need to be reading, and how do I go about finding those? Shall we discuss that when we come back from break? Can we start there?
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
You got it.
We're going to break. This is Cam Marston. You're listening to What's Working. On with me is Robert Tucker. He's a futurist. 200 of the 500 largest companies in the United States have hired him for his insight into trends. And we're going to take a break, and I'm going to clear my throat. We'll be right back.
I'm Matt Armbruster with Ransom Ministries. We help people in our community that most others have given up on. Please donate your unwanted electronics to Ransom Recycling. We teach life skills, job readiness, and job creation through our electronic recycling program. We take anything with a cord. Find us at ransomministries.com, or you can call us at 251-751-0044.
Human Resource Departments spend countless hours on insurance billing mistakes, Obamacare rules, and compliance. Employee benefits serve the purpose of recruiting, retaining, and rewarding employees. We can handle all of your benefit needs with cost-effective products, employee enrollments, and handle your HR issues. Benefit admin doesn't have to be complicated. My name is Michael Cowart Jr. of the Cowart Group, and we specialize in helping businesses with their employee benefit packages. Visit CowartAssociates.com.
Do you have a plan to protect your income if you can't work? We'd all like to believe that we'll never be disabled, but the reality is it could happen to you. And if it does, will your income be protected, your family be cared for? Richard Otts has served the Gulf Coast since 1997. If you'd like more information about disability insurance, contact Richard, 251-342-8917. That's 251-342-8917.
Robert Tucker is on the line with me. He's a former adjunct professor in the Writers Program at UCLA and is the president of the Innovation Resource based in Santa Barbara, California, which is a consulting firm. Been all over the world sharing his insights as well as his ability to teach people to understand how to, and I'm making this up as I go along here, Robert, how to learn what the future has in store for you. So prior to the break, we were talking about what questions do I, as a business owner, do my listeners as business owners, as business influencers, need to ask themselves, and which tea leaves do they read that will help them determine what their future may be? Which of those two should we start with, Robert?
Well, let's start with the first one.
Good. I love it. Logical man. What are the questions I need to ask myself, then my listeners need to ask themselves to help them prepare for their own future?
Well, a favorite question is one that I call just simply saying, self, where will this industry likely be in 10 years? And it turns out that we have a more instinctual sort of, I don't know what the right word would be, but an instinctive understanding of how trends are going to impact an industry. Some of it might be good, some of it might be not so good. But by doing that, I call it futurizing our thinking. It's something that we can do just and we also do every day. I mean, it's like if it looks like rainy outside or the weather forecast says it's going to rain, we might want to take a raincoat. But it's something that we need to do about careers and jobs and businesses, whether small, large, or medium size, because changes are happening so rapidly. So how do I futurize? Well, let's say that you're making a career change and somebody has told you about this great new career that you could get into and be your own boss, home appraisal, right? And you need to take this certification at the local college and it costs X amount of money and so forth. What do you think? So if someone were to come to you, Kim, and say, what do you think, Kim, about this? What I would recommend that you do to help them to be of assistance is, well, let's futurize here. Where will this likely be? And if you do a little bit of research, bingo, right? On the web, you will see that Zillow and other lenders are beginning to use artificial intelligence to replace humans in that respect and to take over that profession. And so that's probably not where you'd want to put your poker chips. That's probably not where you'd want to take a course and jump into that industry. I mean, forewarned, yes, if you still have passion for that, maybe you want to do it. I know if a travel agency, when everybody else was down on the travel agency business, they're based out of Dallas, they went and did a roll-up of travel agencies around and went to the high-end premium, and they are going great guns. So you can counter the trend if you have enough innovation. But I would say, futurizing, I would say drinking in information. I think one of the techniques that I work with executives and managers on is to audit our information intake. Because I think it's when we diet, we look at our caloric intake. And I think right now with media being the way it is, with local newspapers dying on the vine, with just patterns and habits in that respect changing, I think it's harder today to be informed, to get to those articles that can stimulate your creativity, that can help you to think out ahead. So that would be just a long-winded answer there to the questions that you should ask yourself about your profession, your business, your career.
Well, I'm stimulated by this answer because you used the word instinctual, that you have an instinctual. If you're in your business and are current, let's say, in your business, then you likely have an instinctual knowledge of where it's going. You may not be aware of it, which is kind of what you're saying, or at least what I understand you're saying. You may not be aware of how instinctually, if that's a word, you know where the business is going. But what you're kind of saying is trust your gut on this. Verify by doing some research, but trust your gut on this. Is that right?
Exactly. That is exactly right. Yeah. Trust but verify, as Reagan said.
Sure.
But it's more like fill up your knowledge base. I mean, what you do with this great program that you have here is you talk to people, talk to experts in so many different areas, and that keeps you on the cutting edge because you're doing this as a program, right? And that informs your work as a generational expert there. And so I think that's really the way to do it. I started my career as a journalist here in in the Southern California area, and then I taught at UCLA in the writers program, and I did tons and tons of interviews with leading innovators. Now, this was back in the 80s. I know I'm dating myself here, but yes, back in the 80s, I began my career, and I would interview people like Jonas Salk, the developer of the polio vaccine, right? And many, many others, and that just changed my life because I found these people didn't walk on water, that they were just like you and me, and but it just opened my aperture to say I could do this. I could do and be anything that I want to be if I put my mind to it and apply and get knowledge, all right, to fuel that career.
So many of the business leaders, in my opinion, this is Cam Marston's hunch, and I recognize I'm talking to a California-based futurist, but my hunch is that when each one of us is asked about the future of our business, and we'll just focus on me right now, I always think that there's some sort of innovation that's going to hit me in the back of the head. For example, if I think it's Henry Ford that said if I had asked the people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. But it's he that came out with the Model T, that it was a completely different thing, that it's Steve Jobs that, if I'd asked people what they wanted, and I'm making something up, they would have said a smaller Walkman instead of an MP3 player. So these are these radical differentiations that changed the automobile industry for Ford's case, the music industry for Jobs' case. And here I sit thinking, my brain isn't capable of thinking of these left field innovations that are going to disrupt me. Yet you say they're somewhat instinctual, Cam. You need to count on your own. You need to be confident in your own view of the future. Each one of my listeners right now, you need to be confident in your own vision of the future. Double check, spend some time doing some research, but you're not incapable of predicting your future. In the post-pandemic world, you're essentially saying, Robert, you can predict where your business is going to be if you do some research and have some confidence to pursue that. Is that correct? I'm hoping that's correct, because it's going to give a lot of confidence to the people that are listening right now.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, the future is cloudy, and there are all sorts of complexity. I mean, we're in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And there is that. And with the pandemic, we saw that, wow, you can predict all you want, but then something from left field like a pandemic comes along and just disrupts everything. But no, I think just to add to what you're saying there, because I totally buy into the way you framed it there. You can be confident in your vision of the future, but you also want to be tough on yourself and sort of attack your own thinking in the sense of what I call assaulting your assumptions.
Yeah.
And let me give you an example of this. It seems like quite often, maybe because I'm an innovation speaker, I'm invited to help people do this, and they don't know that they're asking me to help them do this. Let me give you an example. I work with the springs industry. Springs. They're everywhere. Look around wherever you're sitting there, and you see tons of them. Well, that's an industry, right? And they meet, and they were meeting in Savannah, and so the lady that I talked to at the association headquarters said, well, I'm hopeful that you can help our guys, Robert, but I got to tell you something. She said, around here we have an expression. I said, what's that? She said, a spring is a spring is a spring. In other words, Cam, meaning that we're in a commodity business, buddy. So you've got a tough topic to be speaking on future trends and innovation with these folks. So I got a little worried. Maybe this is the exceptional group. Maybe this is just the one product that you cannot differentiate. So I asked her for the names of the 10 most successful spring manufacturer members of that association, and I called each and every one of them. And in the course of the conversations, I would gently bring up the topic of, now, do you agree that spring is a spring, and there's nothing you can really do to differentiate it? And you know what they'd say? They'd say, can we go off the record? I don't want you to talk to quote this conversation to the folks, my colleagues there, or my competitors there in Savannah. I said, fine. And they said, oh, are you kidding? The kind of margins that we're getting because we do X and Y and Z to differentiate our springs. And I showed up at a call center company, a Fortune 500 company not long ago in the Midwest in Ohio. And one of the first things that my host told me as he was sort of showing me around the company, I was there to do a consulting project, he said, Robert, call centers are a commodity.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that we got to be tough on ourselves as business owners and look at what are the assumptions that I may be making. And assumptions come in three varieties: the personal assumptions, industry assumptions, and then company assumptions. Like, you hear assumptions, you're generally followed or preceded by the words, that's not the way we do things around here.
Yeah.
Or, we tried that and it didn't work in this industry. I would say that trust your hunch, have confidence in your vision of the future, but also look at disruptions that might come from left field. It could be technology. It could be demographic. I mean, you know more about this than I would. But you take a cosmetics company, Merle Norman. I was talking to one of their executives not long ago, and he said, our product was doing great with the silent generation. They don't call themselves that, but that's what you and I call. Our product and our stores were doing great with the boomer generation. But then with your generation, Generation Y, just fell off a cliff. Right? So you can just suddenly be on the beach with, because demographically you weren't changing with the times.
Yeah. We need to run to a break here, give some advertisers some space here. And I want to get back and I want to talk about, okay, so I've tested my assumptions. How do I teach myself to be creative in coming out of these assumptions? Let's talk about a process for creativity when we come back. I'm on the line, folks, with Robert Tucker. He is a futurist. He has 7 books in his background. The latest is called Innovation is Everybody's Business: How to Make Yourself Indispensable in Today's Hyper-Competitive World. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back. This is Cam Marston, host of What's Working. Jim Mitchell and his team at Signorama have provided all types of signage for nearly every event I've been a part of for years. I know his team's creativity, their multitude of products, and how easy they are to work with. His no mistake Signorama is South Alabama's marketplace leader. Find Signorama on Facebook. Call 634-0100 or visit next to Mullinex Ford on Airport Boulevard.
Think about your home. What do you see? Do you just see 2 stories or the stories of your toddler's first steps? Now think about your car. Do you see an odometer reading or your kids reading in the back seat? Other insurance companies just see a house. They just see a car. But a State Farm agent sees what your home and your car really mean to you. So why not give them the protection they deserve?
You can reach me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, at AllisonHorner.com.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. On the line with me is Robert Tucker. Robert is a contributing columnist for Forbes magazine online and has appeared on Bloomberg, Channel News Asia, ABC, NBC, PBS, and was a featured guest on the CNBC series, The Business of Innovation. Robert, prior to the break, we were looking at how to test assumptions, and I think there's some extraordinary value in that idea. And I would guess that most people aren't even aware of their assumptions. They're almost subliminal. But after we test our assumptions, how do we spur our own creativity? And I'm wondering, do we pirate creativity? Is there a structure to being creative? Back when I worked with GE, they had a chart that was it was their intellectual property on how to be creative. And I remember thinking, oh, I wish I could take this. What is your thought on creativity, the future as being a futurist, and how I think about my own business in the post-pandemic world?
Wow, that is a terrific question, and it's near and dear to my heart. I truly believe that creativity is at the heart and soul of success, especially today in what we might call the creative economy. Businesses rise or fall based on the ideas. We compete on ideas. Companies compete on ideas. You see one restaurant on this side of the street, they've got a line out the door. And then over here is a restaurant. Are they open? It's
right.
There's nobody there. What's the difference? It's usually creativity. Let's walk around to this restaurant. What are they doing differently? Well, they've got a great hostess out there, and she's not being grumpy. She's being friendly. The food is terrific, and look at this. They've got a special on. And so suddenly, this is happening right here in Santa Barbara as we speak. There was this tourist section of town, Lower State Street, it's called. And it was dying on the vine, Cam. Nobody was going there, and it's a beautiful street. It's got good infrastructure. It's got all kinds of trees and old Spanish tile roof buildings and so forth. But the younger people had discovered this other area of town called the Funk Zone, where the wineries were setting up wine tastings, and it was just the place to go. But in this zone, the city council came up with a creative idea. They said, let's close the street off, at least temporarily during the pandemic, and allow restaurants to expand out onto the street.
Oh, outdoor seating. Good.
That's right, outdoor seating. And it was interesting, because I'm always doing experiments. I'm always doing observation. So I'm out there with my wife, and we're looking around, and here's one restaurant, and their response is, well, we're going to put a couple of tables out here. But right on the sidewalk, here's the curb, you fall off. Here's another restaurant, took advantage of a program that the city had to help people, to subsidize a little bit. They're creating a kind of wooden barriers around. They had really nice plants, and it was just such a creative, wonderful environment that who could resist it, right? And so that's the one that had the line out the door. And that's true of any business. We are the sum total of our ideas. So the question should be really, how do we generate ideas?
Right.
And this is an area where that just is totally near and dear to my heart.
How do we generate? What is there a step one? Is there a way to think about this? I'm a big fan of pirating ideas. I look at somebody else's idea and say, oh, I love that, but I think I can do it better. I think I can adopt that for something I'm doing it. And so is there are people listening that would say, I'm not a creative person. I'm an implementer. Give me a creative idea. Tell me what it needs to look like, and I can implement it. I'm not a leader. I'm a good drill sergeant, but I'm not a great team creativity leader. How do you make yourself be creative?
Well, again, I like your idea of pirating ideas, because ideas are everywhere, right? It's just a matter of, are we sort of capturing these butterflies? Yeah. Because if we don't capture them, so I always say, download your ideas the moment they occur. You're driving down the highway, boom, an idea. Call somebody. It doesn't have to be a huge breakthrough idea, but it could be just an incremental idea. Grab those ideas. Yeah. Have a system where you grab your ideas, sort them out. You can't act on all of them. Certainly, you're going to eliminate some of them, but it's really sort of, I see the idea factory, the mental idea factory, or the actual idea factory if you're in a company environment, as being the input, throughput, and output of fresh, compelling ideas. And it takes about, we find that it takes about 80 to 100 ideas to get to a good one. Now, if they're just, but I mean, if they're just, incremental ideas, call this person, make that happen, whatever, those are just, you want to shovel those like they're just, so much fuel for today's fire. But the larger ones don't come along every day. But when they do, you want to be ready. You want to have the mindset of opportunity. Wow, that's an idea. Cam, my most successful book, the one that really took my career to a whole new level and got me going to all these 54 countries to speak and so forth. I was reading Fortune magazine, a competitor magazine here to Forbes, right. But I got to be truthful, and it was a little squib, and it said, this was late 90s, and it said, in the 2000s, innovation might become a big deal.
Really?
Something to that effect. Just one throwaway line. But I thought, that's it. And I had done this work with, the qualities of individual innovators and dabbled in this notion of helping companies to be more innovative. But then I saw that that's probably going to be the case. I have a lot of passion for that, to use your word. And so that's when I started doing this research. What companies are on the cusp of doing innovation differently? How are they, and GE was one of them, and Whirlpool and other companies at that point, which were on fire to restructure how they went about innovation. And that it totally launched off from that. So it's amazing how if we're taking in information and we have this kind of possibility mindset, it's like adding a match to fuel. It just starts from there.
I can't tell you how encouraged I am to hear you say it takes 80 to 100 ideas to find a good one, because I feel like I have ideas about work and business and opportunities that come and go. And I say, this one's going to change me. It's going to change the world. My next idea will become as I'm sitting on my 150-foot yacht in Monaco. This one is the breakthrough idea, and it falls flat. And what you've told me gives me space for failure and to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to not that every idea isn't a home run. Now, let me ask you something. So you mentioned tape a moment ago. One of my clients recently was the Pressure Sensitive Tape Council. They make everything from duct tape to Scotch tape to tape that's used in outer space because it has to have special qualities to it. But one of the questions that they asked me was, Cam, we are fearing getting people back to work post-pandemic. And though everybody, most people, that's an exaggeration, most people is the truth, have enjoyed this work from home environment, what we're missing is the spontaneous creativity of people in meetings, of people bumping into each other, of people standing next to one another at the coffee maker going, man, I just can't work through this idea. You got any ideas? And suddenly an idea is born as these two people who may not work together are sharing a thought. Creativity and spontaneity. And as I understand it, Apple's new building out there in California somewhere was constructed with the purpose of having people from disparate parts of the company have to interact with one another. Talk to me about spontaneous creativity.
Well, I think you're onto something there, and I think that is one of the only sort of flies in the ointment of working at home. The Netflix Reed Hastings of Netflix the other day was talking about this somewhere. He said, I guess Wall Street Journal, he said, I am not big on this working from home thing because of what you're just saying here, the lack of spontaneity. And he mentioned something else, the lack of pushing back, even arguing, disagreeing. I think people on Zoom or virtual meeting kinds of platforms just want to get through the agenda, don't want to make any waves, don't want to push back on anything, don't want to ask any creative questions.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, it's probably the wave of the future, but if innovation is going to take place, you need to have that kind of give and take. And you don't want to have everybody that thinks alike. I always, when I'm setting up a team or helping a company set up an innovation team, you want to have the right players on there. And if they are all thinking alike, they all look alike, they're all the same demographic group, etc., you've got the basis for non-success. Let's just put it that way, right? I mean, I've worked for, not long ago, I worked for a feminine care products company. I mean, they make razors and other products, but there were only a couple of women in this 40-person brainstorming group that we were doing off-site. And I kicked myself for not having send the guest list and pushing back on that, and you need more women in here. But it was absolutely, can I call it, ridiculous that we were brainstorming feminine care products.
And it was all men, with the exception of 2 people.
It was all men, right? So back to your point earlier about unmet needs and even what I call unarticulated needs. Those are needs that the customer doesn't even bother to say out loud because they just assume that there's no solution for it or that the present solution is the only way to go here. They don't say, there's got to be a better way to do X. They just accept the way your industry, your business operates, and they don't question it. But I mean, few people do. But so that's sort of the name of the game there. But as you mentioned earlier, Apple's new building in Cupertino absolutely is designed to engender collaboration. Yeah. And Steve Jobs, who masterminded that before he passed away, that building, that amazing donut structure, whatever, it's a round building. But when he purchased Pixar, he had collaboration in mind. And he put the mail room, so to speak, in the atrium so that people had to wander out of their cubicles or their offices and meet in a common area. And to your point earlier, they had a spontaneous conversation. Hey, I'm working on X project. Yeah. You got any ideas for Y? And that sort of thing was very effective at Pixar. So he took that idea and ran with it and created Apple's new headquarters there to engender that kind of collaboration.
Robert Tucker is a futurist. His most recent book is called Innovation is Everybody's Business, How to Make Yourself Indispensable in Today's Hyper-Competitive World. Robert, the conversation today has stimulated my thought incredibly. I know it has the listeners as well. I'd like your permission to get you back on the show in about 3, 4, 5 months on the other side of the new year and see how things look then compared to how they look now. We can compare and contrast. How's that sound?
That sounds great. I'd love to do that.
Appreciate your time. Folks, you're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be back after this break with final comments.
Do you sometimes wonder about different money topics, but struggle to find the answers? The Every Dollar Counts podcast with Gulf Coast experts Josh Knoll and Jay Stubbs is made for those folks serious about their financial plan and looking for answers. Josh and Jay dedicate their time to explaining the various services and products available, as well as discussing lifestyle and money interests of the modern-day family. Tune in to Every Dollar Counts on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else you get your favorite podcasts.
The best, most cost-efficient ways to talk to customers about who you are and what you do is through signs, simple, effective signs. Hi, I'm Cam Marston, host of What's Working. Signorama is the Mobile area's leader in helping you design and build signs advertising your business. What kinds? All kinds of signs, all kinds. Find Signorama on Facebook or at signorama-mobile.com. Hi, I'm Cam Marston, host of What's Working. My Carrier Infinity system is quiet, energy efficient, and runs like a dream. To keep it running smoothly, I rely on a maintenance plan from Keith Air Conditioning. With a Keith maintenance plan, your home or business receives discounts and 24/7 priority service. Give Keith Air Conditioning a call today at 251-476-3610 or visit keithair.com. Keith and Carrier. Turn to the experts. Well, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I have a weakness for futurists who make me think differently. And I think one of the skills, or the talents rather, they bring to their customers is both an ability to review business decisions that companies and individuals have made in the past, and to be able to understand the implications of those decisions, as well as to see the trends down the road and how those trends may impact similar decisions that have been made in the past in the future, if that makes any sense. In other words, let's look forward and, using the decision matrices we've used in the past, try to predict what may come of this. Now, one of the things that Robert didn't get into, that I didn't ask him about, that we will touch on the next time I get him on the phone in the new year, will be management and leadership attitudes around innovation. Because I think there's a lot to be said for the leaders in the workplace and how they foster, encourage, kindle, promote innovation. The teams, the employees' ability or desire to contribute to the innovation of the organization. Too much, and we almost play a stereotype by going into this, but too much the leaders of organizations, and I don't know why, but it's more common in males than females, want to squelch the innovation of those around and particularly below them in the hierarchy. The reason? They're fearful that the innovation that comes from beneath will make them look bad, make them not look as strong, make them look like they're ready to be replaced. And it is their natural inclination in many cases to squelch anything that comes up like that. There's also the fear of innovation brings about doing things differently, and doing things in ways we've never done them before, and that will be uncomfortable and cause us to stumble and not leap forward, but rather lurch forward. There's something to be said, and we're seeing this, I believe, in our society as slowly begin to come out. There's something to be said for the individual who is promoting the innovation and the success of their teams. That is promoting the desire for their subordinates, their teammates, whatever, to come up with very new and interesting and strange ideas. And one of the things that Robert said that really stuck out to me, and I mentioned it in the interview, that it takes 80 to 100 ideas, 80 to 100 ideas to find a good one. Now, what does that mean for you that are listening in positions of leadership? It means that you've got to go through a lot of ideas and innovation, whatever the term may be. You got to listen to a lot of thoughts come up through the pipeline before you find one that matters. And in a position of leadership, you could get tired of that. Hey, no more of this. Let's just do it the way we've always done it. We don't have to keep going through all this. It's the rare, patient, motivated, future-focused leader that understands that allowing these types of ideas to work themselves up through the system will have benefit to the organization down the road, though you got to go through 80 to 100 different ideas to find one that will make a difference in your marketplace or in your management or in your leadership. Again, I love these futurists, economists too. I could talk to them forever. The way they see the world is so very intriguing to me. And when I get them on the phone or meet them in person or hear them at conferences, I'm just entranced by the way they assemble information and then spit it back out. Well, let's wrap it up for this week. I want you to connect with me on social media. It's where we continue to find ideas and submit ideas to our listening public to get feedback on them. You can find me on Instagram, Cam Marston. And you know what? Here's something that we're looking for. Maybe somebody knows somebody. There is the job title of social media influencer. It's a real job. And I want to interview one of these people on my show. If you know of a social media influencer, send them my way. Show is produced by John Thompson with Ion Digital. Find us on Instagram. Look for Cam Marston, as well as Facebook, Cam Marston, and YouTube, by the way, YouTube. We'll have another show next week. Have a good week, everybody.